Come manifest your best life with 190 Vision.
Hello, my name is Laura, and my husband, who you're going to hear, is often referred to as Coach. We are discussing suicide. Now, since 190 Vision began, we've had several individuals come through who have, souls who've come through who have committed suicide. And surprisingly, majority of them were very young, like teenagers, early 20s. There was one individual, one soul, who was from Korea, South Korea, and all of a sudden I just saw the lights flickering, this one light actually flickering in our living room, and I thought, why is this light flickering? It doesn't just normally happen. So I said, there must be a soul here. And I just started asking questions and got confirmation, yes, there was a soul there. And I heard my husband answer the telephone, and he was talking with someone. And then he came out and he said, well, a family is looking to find a way to connect with their child who just took his own life a few weeks ago. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting because this light keeps flickering, and it's the soul here who wants to connect and communicate. And that's when my husband went and he did his work and found out that, yes, that's the same soul. And we had to connect him with his family. That was a very interesting case. Now, why did he take his life? Honey?
Yes.
Since you had more, I'll say, one-on-one time with this soul, what were the reasons why this young man took his own life?
Well, before we even get to that, I just want to clarify. I don't know if the soul came through maybe a couple weeks after he passed. I don't know what the time frame was. You know, you're better at time frames than I am.
Mm-hmm.
But just in case maybe someone that's familiar with this situation watches this video and they're saying, well, no, that was not the right time frame. Just know that we don't really remember the time frame, especially me. So I want to point that out. Next thing is, what I'd like to do first is to go through some statistics according to these different websites, especially the what's it called? Center of Diseases. Is that what it's called?
Center for Disease Control.
Center for Disease Control.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That way, individuals, especially since it awakened me, because I didn't realize that suicide was this rampant. At least they'll be educated as well, as much as I've been regarding suicide, if that's okay with you.
Sure, go ahead.
The first thing is that I'm reading this off the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention website, but they're quoting the statistics from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Okay?
Okay.
The first thing is, if you are thinking about committing suicide, or if you know anyone that you might be thinking is maybe entertaining the idea of committing suicide, there's actually a phone number that you can call. Apparently, folks think that you call 911. You can do that, but 911 is for other types of emergencies. In order for someone to get quicker help and help where they won't be asked to say unnecessary questions, they can literally call the number 988, which I wasn't even aware of. But
now, this is for the United States, right?
Yes, there's a 24 hours hotline. But I would think that because it's a hotline number, you could also send SMS, the messages to it.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're in a different country, you could probably send a message. I don't know how I guess they can communicate with you that way, right? Through the text messaging. So you could do that. But you can either call just 988, call or text is a point. You can text 988. And you can also call or text this other number. It's 741-741. So that's again is 741-741. if you just want to talk to somebody, if you're not feeling well, or if you know someone that you're concerned about, whether or not you think they'll commit suicide, at least you can uh, have them reach out to these numbers or call somebody so maybe they can contact the person you're concerned about. So I want to start with that. Now,
Okay.
according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention website, quoting numbers from the CDC, or Centers for Disease Control, they have here that suicide is the 12th leading cause of death in the US, because that's every age group, right? It's the 12th leading cause. And this is a little old, 3 years old, but in 2020, 45,000, let's say around 46,000 Americans died by suicide.
Hmm.
And then I would think this is just an approximation, because they're talking about suicide attempts. So those are just the ones that they know about, right?
Right.
So, so this is definitely an estimation here. But in 2020, there were about, oh, they do state it here, estimated. There were estimated 1.2 million suicide attempts.
Wow. That's
So
a lot.
exactly. So as you can see, these numbers are huge. Um, the rate of suicide is highest in middle-aged white men, according to this data. All right. So white men, middle-aged, are more likely to, I guess, attempt or get involved in suicide. In 2020, almost 4 times more men died of suicide than women. The
Hmm.
number is 3.88 times more men died of suicide than women.
Wow.
On average, there are 130 suicides a day. And of course, that's just based on the ones that they know about.
Hmm.
130 per day.
That's a
Out,
lot to me.
yes. And out of those 130, I guess, per day, 69.68% of suicide deaths are of white males.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
right. Very interesting, right? Now, for example, I know that here you go. Suicide rates in 2020 were higher among adults ages 25 to 34. Are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm listening.
Okay. So, even though they have here that younger groups have had consistently lower suicide rates, that's good, right? Than middle-aged or older adults. In 2020, young adults aged 15 to 24 had a suicidal rate of 14%. That's still very high, right? But I guess compared to, let's see here, what was that? They didn't give a percentage for the adults. Yeah, actually there is. It's 18% for adults between 25 and 34. And that would be like 20, almost 21% for adults ages 85 years or older.
Wow.
So that's what we're looking at, right? So
Hmm.
now the question becomes, why do individuals feel that they should commit suicide?
Hmm.
So I know you asked me the question, why the one person, the one example you gave, committed suicide. But before we get to that, what would be, or what are the most popular reasons that you think people commit suicide? I mean, from your experience, just talking to people.
It could be what's happening in their home, like abuse, that they just don't want to go through it anymore. So they end it by killing off themselves. Stress, anxiety, depression, feeling completely lost in the world and not knowing what to do, where to go. I think those are the biggest reasons, individuals that I've seen posting, requesting help for what they're going through and their thoughts about possibly taking their life will always say, you know what, I'm at my lowest point, lost the job, lost my house, divorced, wife took the kids or spouse took the kids, or which way it goes, and nothing is working out. It feels like I'm just supposed to leave. So,
Right. So those are the normal ones, right?
mhm.
Um, Something that people might not think about is, for example, in the case of the one example you gave, the kid jumped out of a window from like a very tall building, right? So many I don't recall how many floors up.
It was in the teens,
It was what?
like 14 or 15
Oh,
story
okay.
floor.
So jumped out the window. Why did he do that? He heard a voice that told him to do that. Now you can say that maybe he lost his mind, but what we found out later on was that he spent a lot of time playing video games. He went to in Korea, I guess, and other countries, they have these places that are designed just for you to play video games to socialize with people. That's all they do.
Hmm.
So we'll come back to that. So now, here are all these folks, whether they're being abused or whatever is going on, they feel depressed, like I said, anxious. What
Oh,
do we do if we see someone that maybe we think is having is going through a low point in his or her life? You know, what do you do? Do you just stand by and watch them? Ac- According to Mayo Clinic, here are some things that you could do. You could start asking them questions. So again, here we're taking the regular approach, right?
hmm.
You could ask them things like, "Hey, are you coping with what's been happening in your life? Or what's going on in your life? Is there something really challenging going on?" And
Hmm.
now you ask questions like that, you should be willing to listen, correct?
Absolutely.
You don't just ask them the question and cut them off. They also suggest, Mayo Clinic suggests on their website, to ask questions like, "Do you ever feel like just giving up? Have you thought about dying?
Hmm.
Are you thinking or have you thought about hurting yourself? You know, have you thought about suicide? Have you tried to harm yourself?" The next question is that if you've thought about that, have you thought about when you do it or how you're going to do it? Say the type of question you'd ask.
Uh-huh.
Now, some people might say, well, that could push the person away. Yes, it could. At the same time, the person might feel like finally somebody's willing to listen to him or her and they actually open up about their feelings and start talking. When before, maybe they felt that somebody would judge them if they tried to speak how they were feeling or express how they're feeling.
Hmm.
Or maybe they tried to express it, nobody listened. Or they haven't said anything because they're afraid how they, especially family, right? How they might look at them.
Right.
So they talk about here in the same website, they have look for signs, warning signs. If you hear them talk about, they say things like, "I'm going to kill myself. I wish I were dead. I wish I hadn't been born." Can you think of any others? That as far as behaviors or maybe signs that someone could be thinking about committing suicide?
Death is probably better than this. Uh,
What?
Death is probably better than this.
Better than what?
This, whatever they're experiencing, death is probably better than this, is a phrase I've heard.
Oh, I didn't know it was
You
a
asked the
phrase.
question.
Okay then. All right. Go ahead.
No, that's the one. And when you asked the question, that's the one that came to my mind when I heard it said death would be better than this, or death is probably better than this.
Okay.
So,
How about behaviors? I mean, that's maybe a thought or
right,
something
something
like
they vocalize, right?
right.
Behavior, they tend to withdraw. They stay by themselves more often. Might look like they're trying to hide, maybe like wearing a hoodie or always covering themselves. Um, really, just more so, they're really withdrawn and not dealing with anyone and just staying by themselves. You might notice for artistic individuals, the things that they draw or paint, whatever they do, really look, as I'll call it, dark. It's
Hmm.
leaning more toward a death type scene.
Hmm.
So
Like they're
they
consumed
usually
with
have
death.
hunched over shoulders and like, they don't want anybody looking at them.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, here it has um, having mood swings.
Mm,
Where one day they're emotionally very happy, next day they're very discouraged.
hmm
You know, as you mentioned, being preoccupied with death, dying, or violence.
hmm
You know, feeling trapped or hopeless about the situation. And with some people, they start to use like abuse, alcohol, drugs, things like that. They change their normal routine. So instead of eating or sleeping regularly, all of a sudden their eating habits change. Their sleeping pattern also changes. Like they can't sleep or they stay up late hours.
hmm
Um, they start to give away belongings. I've heard about that where people just start to give away things,
mm
or they start to plan things like a will. They discuss will or what will happen once they're gone. Sound familiar?
Yes, they do.
Right.
hmm
Saying goodbye to people as though they won't be seen again. And then, of course, they're anxious or they develop personality changes, where they don't behave the same way and not in a good way, right?
hmm
So these are some signs. And if if these signs are there, either for someone watching this video or you know of someone that might be displaying these signs, you could reach out for help for them. Going back to the number we talked about, which was 988 or 741-741, just so they can get some help. Now, that's from the mundane standpoint, right? That's from here, how it happens in society.
hmm
Of course, this is 190 vision, so we take the approach from the spiritual realm. Despite all these, I mean, there are a lot of free hotlines for suicide help, correct?
Yes, from what I've seen.
And despite that, people are still committing suicide. And of course, you can't stop everybody, right? Someone is determined to do something, they'll do it anyway.
Yep.
I started thinking though, if someone wants to commit suicide, do they really want to talk to somebody? I guess some people do, but some people might not want to talk to anybody,
hmm
right?
Right.
Next thing is this whole thing about um, like going to a medical place, where you can, like an emergency center. It's great if people go, but some people might not make it because,
hmm
again, as far as they're concerned, that's too involved.
Yep. And they probably see it as this is hopeless. They can't do anything to help me. I'm better off dead. My family's better off dead.
Mhm.
Everybody's better off if I'm not here.
So, not that their family is better off dead. You're talking
No,
about
no.
them killing their
My family's
family.
better off if I'm dead, is what I meant.
Okay. Okay, you're taking this too far here for a
No,
moment.
we're not going down murder there. We're just, suicide here.
Right. So I figure that from One Night Division's standpoint, we can give them a different outlet. And that outlet is where they could literally, now the thing is, they'd have to, I guess, fill out a consent form. That could take a long time too. They might not have the patience for that.
Right.
And it's not like they can call us in person to say, I need help. So when I think about it, we're not much help with that either from that standpoint.
Right. Not unless they know someone. And we've had that where someone knew someone who was affiliated with 190 Vision, and that friend or family member reached out to us and said, look, this individual is really struggling. This is what they're saying. Could you help them?
Right.
And, we were able to move on it at that time. And yes, we got a consent form and everything, but, that was one way.
Mm-hmm. So the main thing here is we want to see how we can help individuals before this suicide takes place. Because
Mhm.
yes, we've helped souls that committed suicide, as in they died because they committed suicide, and then they came through to us for help so they can communicate with their loved ones.
Mhm.
But that's after the fact. That's all nice, but really, everybody would be a whole lot happier if it were to take place, as in, let's make sure the suicide doesn't take place and you stay on earth with your loved ones, right?
Right.
So how do we make that happen? So let's look at it from the spiritual standpoint.
Okay.
Why would anybody want to commit suicide? Now, we went through the normal explanations, as in how society looks at it.
Mhm.
But from the spiritual standpoint, and from what we've experienced, right, the souls that we have helped um, after they passed, what have you found out, or what do you remember is the biggest cause and other causes of someone even entertaining the idea of committing suicide?
Well, the biggest one were entity attachments that were.
Okay, hold on. Instead of being technical, I'd like you to just keep it simple. What do you mean by entity attachment? What is that?
Okay, most people are familiar with the term demons, literal demons
Okay.
that were influencing the individual to take their life.
Okay. So to me, that's very clear, right? So I think folks will understand that.
Mhm.
Okay. And how are they doing that?
Um, through constant suggestions of whatever way they could to influence the individual and get them to use their free will to commit suicide.
Okay.
They did it through, from our experience, gaming and social media, through addictive substances like alcohol and drugs.
Okay, but keep in mind that it's not just because it's social media or because it's gaming. It's the
Right.
type of social media. It's the type of gaming.
Hmm.
So how about if you give some more details on that? That way we don't give anyone the impression that social media is bad or that gaming
Okay.
is bad.
All right. Well, in regard to gaming, from what I recall, it was a very graphic killing games where they just go around killing, killing, killing to be able to win the game. You just kill anything and everything in your way. And then, as far as social media, um, if I recall correctly, one of the souls said it was a site where people just always basically talked about, not even a site, a group of some kind that just always talked about their problems and how they would solve them. And so suicide was brought up a lot, or wishing that they'd be dead, things like that.
Exactly. All right. And so we want to make that clear that it's the groups or the environment that the individuals chose to be in that help influence them to take certain action based on, as we might say, the frequency being lowered, where let's say a demonic force of some kind or a um, negative spirit of some kind could attach to that individual and then influence the individual that way. Now, you made a comment, for example, that um, influence or use the person's free will for them to kill themselves. Well, that's not really what happens, because when a demonic force possesses someone, the individual doesn't have free will, right?
Right.
So, and that's the thing, that the possession bypasses the free will. So these individuals are not choosing to commit suicide because they want to, in many cases, because their free will has been taken from them by this possessing force, whatever it is. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So now, again, from our experience, we've seen where, depending on what they've been exposed to, whether it's drugs, I mean, we've had some, where was some drugs.
Hmm.
In one case, I think it was an accidental overdose, if I
Yes.
remember right. But
Yes.
he was actually taking the drugs,
Hmm.
accidentally overdosed himself. He didn't mean to kill himself, right? If I remember.
Right. Right. He was trying to relax on vacation.
Oh,
Yep.
oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, so the point is that even though someone might be depressed or anxious, they feel like they've been abused and everything else. That's not the only thing influencing them from the spiritual side, from what we see.
Hmm.
From because of the feelings that they have, the emotions that they're carrying, they lower their frequency is lower to the point where they invite these non-beneficial energies or entities to come in and possess them, and then have them take certain actions that maybe if they weren't in that state, they wouldn't take.
Hmm.
So what do we do? Why are we having this conversation about this? Well, at 190 Vision, how would we help with that? For example, someone is not feeling right, first of all. So before we even get to the part where they're thinking about suicide, they feel
Hmm.
depressed, they feel anxious, right? Maybe they feel hopeless.
And stress.
Maybe they are being physically abused or mentally abused. They've been abused in one way or another. How would 190 Vision help these individuals? And how have we been helping individuals in situations like that?
Well, when they come to us requesting help, then one of the first things we do are we check for these demons or negative entities, and if they're there, we make sure that they're taken away so they can no longer be there as influencers trying to get or taking over the free will of the individual and getting them to do something that they shouldn't.
Now, for that to take place, does the person have to be in our physical presence?
No, nope. Everything we do is done remotely.
Right? So I feel that because of that, it can be a big help to someone based on our past experience, right? Because they
Right.
don't have to travel anywhere. You know, it's as simple as getting in touch by submitting a form, requesting help, which they can do online on the 190vision.com website.
Hmm.
And just by doing that, we get to work. They don't have to talk to us at all. They don't have to explain anything to us. All they have to do is just fill out the form and submit it online, and then we get to work. You know, we'll look to see what's going on, see what could be influencing them, to either feel anxious, to feel sad, whatever entities attach to them because of what they're going through, whether it's abuse or maybe they just feel discouraged from what's going on in their lives. Those things are dealt with, and within hopefully a short time, they contact us and say they're feeling good,
Hmm.
and then from there we help them get things back on track. You know, so how do we do that? How do we help someone get things on track?
Well, once the clearing work has taken place, then we start helping them just from our side, not even with them doing anything, with some balancing work, helping balancing out their physical body, their environment, things like that. So that way they have more clarity of mind, they feel better, and things start to improve. But from their side, they could easily participate in one of the trainings and start learning how to help keep their frequency high or vibration, whatever you want to call it, their energy, and help themselves work their way through whatever brought them to that point.
So how do we do that? You're describing the paradigm shift training, right? Our first
That's
training
right.
offered
Yes.
in One Night Division, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's free.
Mm-hmm.
So first we help them by identifying what could be affecting them from the spiritual realm, right? Because that's important.
Yes.
And then after that, once we see that that's stabilized, then we go ahead and say, listen, we know you have some emotional issues. We know that some things some things affecting why you feel depressed and anxious. You're going to learn some techniques in paradigm shift so you can release those things.
Mm-hmm.
They might be struggling in school. That person might be a student and they're struggling, thinking that I can't make it. A college student, high school student, I'm dumb, I can't make it. And all of a sudden now we say, you're going to learn some techniques and how you can remember things and
Mm-hmm.
how your grades can improve. So instead of getting an F, you could get maybe, even if it's just a C, right? But from
Mm-hmm.
what we've seen, the individuals that have applied these techniques, their grades are a whole lot better than a C.
Yes.
So what else would they learn? In this training, paradigm shift training, that would help them.
Well, something that once they find out that sure these entities or negative entities around them, they want to know, how do I protect myself? And that's something that we discuss as well, how they can protect themselves,
Mhm.
so that way they can stay in a place of peace and bliss, if you will.
Mhm.
And you talked about the studying. They'll learn how to release some emotional blocks and how to change their perspective when situations do come up. So that way they are looking at it from a standpoint that is positive. Because one of the challenges with a lot of individuals is because of the way society is, the negative or the worst is always assumed and thought about. And we help with changing that mindset a bit through what they learn in the paradigm shift training.
So hopefully, we also help them with learning techniques, right? Like memory techniques, where they can remember things better,
Hmm.
improve their memory. So hopefully, with this little description we've given, whomever's watching this video gets to understand that it's not just about preventing someone from committing suicide. It's about helping the individual turn around. That there's that feeling of hope because, okay, there are actually things that I can do where I don't feel like um, I'm an outcast, or people are willing to help me and give me tools that will help me. And I'm not the only one. There are others in this training that have their own challenges, but they don't judge.
Hmm.
And as they go through the training, then of course they become more confident. And the whole idea of life is not worth it, or that maybe I'm a failure, or whatever it is that the person might be thinking, those thoughts slowly go away and are
Hmm.
replaced with feelings of I'm good at what I do. And I know I'm successful because they see that by applying these techniques, positive results become clear and they feel a whole lot better. What do you think?
Oh, no, I agree with that. That's definitely a lot of the result that we've seen. A major boost in confidence, self-esteem, and individuals who feel like, you know what, life is worth living. I believe I know my purpose now, and I can move forward knowing that I've been enabled or empowered to be able to live my life the way I want it and not think that everything has to be bad.
So going back to the individuals that have come to us, the souls that have come to us, so they can communicate with their family members that are still on planet Earth, I'll put it that way. Everything that they've shared with us, I don't recall a single one that was happy about committing suicide. Do you?
No, no. Most of them uh, regretted the decision and said that they wish they would have known while they were still living what they knew in the spiritual realm. They would have stayed.
Right. So for anyone that might be thinking about it, you know, things can be really rough and it might seem hopeless, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
If you just go to 190vision.com and go to, I think it's Help Me, the Help Me tab, just click on that and you'll see where it prompts you for your email address. Put it in there, I think along with your name. When you click that, just wait a few seconds because another screen is going to come up, and that's where you put in the rest of the information. Because we ask for specific information so that we can make sure that we're facilitating for the right person.
And that's the consent form.
What's that?
That is the consent form that comes up.
Right.
Hmm.
That's the consent form. And once that's submitted, we receive that, we get to work. Okay? Nobody will be calling you, asking you questions, nothing like that. We just get to work. And then you update us. Just let us know. I'm not feeling any better, or I feel better now. From the experiences that we've had, in many cases, folks feel better. Maybe we've had cases where they didn't feel better. I don't recall them, but I'm sure we've had some.
Hmm.
Can you recall some that didn't feel any better?
Yes, there were some. It wasn't that they didn't feel better at all. They felt some improvement, but then there was still some residual. I won't say it was depression, but like sadness or unresolved things. Hmm.
Oh, and then we probably took them to the next level with that one to get those taken care of, hopefully.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
okay. So we wanted to make this video. It's not a typical video that we'd make, um, but it's a video that we felt we had to make because we're reaching out to anyone that might be affected negatively. Well, I don't think I even have to put negatively, but that's affected by anxiety, depression, feeling hopeless, feeling worthless, feeling like it's better to end life than to live it.
Hmm.
We're telling you that it doesn't have to be that way. Okay, give yourself a chance. Just reach out to 190 Vision and let's see if we can help you. And if 190 Vision is only one option. As I said before, in the beginning of this recording, we mentioned the numbers that you can call directly. They're 24-hour hotlines for suicide prevention. Use them, because they'll help you as much as they can. And we're here trying to help just in our little way, as much as we can. So hopefully you'll reach out to us. Oh, and by the way, once you give us regular updates, you then have more direct contact with us. We don't do it initially
Right.
because we don't want to be inundated with a lot of calls. That's what the call centers are for. We're not a call center. We don't have that type of staff. We don't have that type of equipment. Okay, but we want to help you as best as we can
Hmm.
because a life saved is a wonderful thing. Just think about it this way. Before you were born, you chose to accomplish certain things in this lifetime. Those things were accompanied by other people or other souls that agreed to help you to accomplish what you decided in this lifetime. So if the life is ended prematurely, then all these souls that are supposed to be involved in your life to help you accomplish that goal, now they're living their lives without that interaction. So they don't have that opportunity anymore to help you accomplish what all of you agreed on you should accomplish in this lifetime. So we'd rather save the soul as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we want to save the soul. And with your help, with you reaching out either to the hotlines or by filling out the form, we just wanted to make sure that the life is not taken. How about that?
That sounds great.
Okay, you have anything else to add to that? Hen?
No, nothing else. We look forward to working with you.
Oh, by the way, we talk about paradigm shift, but we also have a version specifically for teenagers coming up, right?
Yes.
You know, we've always offered paradigm shift for adults. And we must say that we're correcting our decision of not including teens, because teens, from what we've seen, need a lot of help as well as adults. So why would we not have a paradigm shift training for teens? So when we say if you're a teenager and you're having challenges, reach out, okay? Reach out, and we'll do our best to help you. And once you get in that training, that's where the way you think and the way you look at things could change and improve. And then you'll see the improvement in your world, you know, in your environment and in yourself, so that now you want to live because you found your purpose again in this lifetime. That's all I have to say.
I think that was a great way to end it.
Remember to subscribe and like this YouTube video or Spotify podcast. Join the Facebook group 190 Vision to connect with others who are on a similar journey. Get help by visiting our website, 190vision.com, then click on the Help Me tab. Support the 190 Vision mission by clicking on the Donate button, which is located at the bottom of each page of our website.